evening. I call this meeting to an order for September 12th. And for those of you that are watching online, please know that you can follow along with the agenda we have provided. I'll go ahead and start with our secretary to take roll call.
Okay. Vice Chair Parker,
Here.
Commissioner Acosta,
Here.
Commissioner Carroll,
Here.
Commissioner Haywood,
Here.
Commissioner Kriz. Here. Commissioner Meeks Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Hari Haran, and Chair Reed.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Please join me as we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd now like to open it to public comment, which are for items that aren't listed on the agenda.
Good evening. My name is Scott Albert. I serve on the Roseville City Council, and I have to get to a 6 o'clock meeting tonight, so I cannot wait until later to speak. But first, I would just like to say thank you so much, commissioners. You do a wonderful job for our city, and your council really appreciates you going through all the applications, visiting these different businesses, and selecting those that meet our mission and further the wonderful work here in the community. And can't turn around with a mic, but all the wonderful people here in the room that represent the lifeblood of our city, the love and the giving back that all these different agencies from birth to the elderly. And your city thanks you so much for the service that you provide to all of us. And congratulations on the awards you got. I'm going to have to watch on TV and hear how you're using all the different funding. But it's a wonderful thing for our city to be able to offer these funds to help further a wonderful mission in our community. So thank you all for what you do.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? All right. Well, then I will now proceed to closing public comment and turning it over to Secretary Camilleri.
Oh, thank you. Citizens addressing the commission during public comment are asked to approach the podium and are limited to 3 minutes unless extended by the chair, and must be regarding items that are not listed on the agenda and are with the city's jurisdiction. The Brown Act does not permit any action or discussion on items not listed on the agenda. No action will be taken on items addressed under public comments. Looks like back over to Chair.
And I open public comment again if anyone has any. Noting that no public comment, we'll go ahead and close it. Now we'll move on to the minutes. And has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? If so, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes. I second.
Okay, can we get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we will go ahead to the presentation items. So for this, we have a little guideline. We have some outline. So there's going to be that little box up there you see next to the microphone that's color coordinated. So it has 3 settings. If you, Commissioner Parker, would like to.
I guess there's the start, but, so it'll go green, and then it'll turn yellow, and then it will turn red, and it will blink red, and then your time will be up. So.
Yes, so the yellow will show that you have 1 minute, and then, as she mentioned, 1 red. We have about 16 people, and I will get through the ones that have been confirmed that are here. If I miss any at the end, I will ask for that. If you are on the list to speak twice, feel free to just cover both programs during that time frame, and we will, that way you don't have to come up both times. And then, let's see, so we have 16 organizations, and we will go ahead and see if we could start. So let me see 1 second. Oh, okay, well, here we go. So the vice chair has already set the timer for all of you to know, and then we ask you to be considerate of the time due to all the presentations. We will hold our comments towards the end, but we will applaud in between, and I will call each organization that has been there. So we'll go ahead and start. For the first one is Placer Food Bank.
Good evening. We're here on behalf of Jorge Lupercio, our Director of Operations, and Dave Martinez, our Executive Director. They both send their apologies for not being here this evening. They had previous business commitments. So I'm Lisa Heinrich, Director of Development, Placer Food Bank, and my colleague.
Ms. Deb McGill, Grants Administrator.
So we are reporting on behalf of Dave and Jorge, which we're very happy to do. And I'm going to hand it over to our Grants Administrator, Deb, so she can provide the report.
Thank you. And I will watch the clock. We just wanted to let you know, in 2002, Placer Food Bank acquired an additional 44,000 square feet of warehouse space adjacent to our current location. With that space, we were able to accommodate the ever-increasing demand for services in our community. It allows us also a dedicated space for volunteer preparation area. Last year, more than 2,000 volunteers sorted, packaged, and helped distribute over 9 million. That shocks me too. Over 9 million pounds of food. Over 225,000 individuals who received part of that food were residents of Roseville. Some are our neighbors, some are our family members, and some may be some in this room. We are so very grateful for the funding that we received. With our $26,083, we were able to buy some food preparation equipment that will help us streamline and efficiently meet the increasing demand that we've seen. With that, we bought some tilt tables, some conveyor belts, storage bins, and our staff is most excited about a shrink wrap, automatic shrimp wrap machine, because right now they are manually shrink wrapping pallets of food. So they're excited that that gets to be an automated process. With that, it's really impacted our volunteers. They feel very secure to come in and not have to lift boxes, not have to move pallets around. So our staff and our volunteers, along with our other supporters, are our lifeline. And we're just thrilled that with your funding, we are able to keep them safe, keep them coming back, and keep supporting the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Lighthouse Counseling and Family Resource Center.
Old, you walk a little slower. McDonald, Executive Director of Lighthouse Counseling and Family Resource Center. As you probably remember, we provide counseling, educational classes, therapy groups, and we help families get the resources that they need. In our application, we mentioned that we serve a lot of children. Overall, 4,500 people per year. Over half of them are under the age of 18. We've also mentioned in our application that we've seen a pretty significant increase in suicidal ideation in children. I don't recall if this was in the application or not, but one of the families on our wait list, their child committed suicide. They took their own life. It was an 11-year-old boy. So I struggled. What do I say to you for the funding that you've given us, because you are helping us save lives, literally. So I thought, rather than going into some of our successes, nonprofit of the year, and we're very efficient. 96 cents of every dollar goes to programs, which makes us one of the most efficient in nonprofits of the year. But I really wanted to share with you a list of our clients. And when I say a list of our clients, I asked my clinical director for kind of synopsis of the typical people, or specifically young people that we're serving. So they gave me 8 examples, and these are real-life examples. First one, and forgive me for the abbreviations because this is how it was presented to me. First child, trans, feels watched and judged at school, ADHD, history of self-harm, anxiety, possible autism. Second child, 4-year-old, angry, aggressive, throws, hits, obsessive, recent trauma, trans-like state. Third one, pornography addiction, 12 years, suicidal ideation, never been in a relationship, depressed, angry, hopeless. Next, client is trans, previous domestic violence, arguing, little communication, client suicide attempt with a 5150 2 months ago. 5150 is a suicide hold. Depressed. Next, defiant 13-year-old, angry, disrespectful, marijuana, assaulted mother, arrested in juvenile hall, or was in juvenile hall. 17-year-old victim of crime, recent attack, sleeping more, disconnected, struggling in school, depression, social anxiety, mother died 2 years ago. 15-year-old, saw a friend being sexually assaulted, mother died 2 years ago, a different child. Reserved, disconnected, depression and anxiety, drinking. Next, 6-year-old sexual assault victim, probably drug and alcohol exposure before birth, speech delay. And the last one, 4-year-old, recent trauma, car accident, mother died, serious injury in the car accident, head trauma, personality change, aggression, speech regression, possible autism. These are the people that you are saving their lives by the donations that you're providing to Lighthouse. This deeply affects me, so I very much appreciate what you do for Lighthouse and the people that we serve. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the Tommy Apostolos Fund.
When you're lame, it takes even longer. Thank you for having me. My name is Hallie Romero. I'm the executive director of the Tommy Apostolos Fund. As many of you may know, it's a small nonprofit that helps clothe the children of Roseville in order to build self-esteem and show the kids in our community that we care. This past year, we were so excited with the money that you were able to give us. We were able to get back in the store. We were able to get back shopping with children. We took over 400 children shopping on December 3rd of 2022. We took them into Kohl's store, paired them up with over 700 volunteers that came out that day and shopped for about approximately $150 worth of clothing, plus Kohl's gives us a 25% discount. So all in all, these kids are able to get about $200 worth of clothing, brand new, just for them, specifically to show them that they matter. It is a unique and great experience. It's one of those things that not only does it help the children, but the volunteers get a lot out of it too. It's a charity where you're able to see immediately the impact that you make. And so we hope that you can join us. We are planning to be there again this year. Again, as I mentioned, it was fun to be back in that store with them all. When you have 1,200 people in Kohl's at 5:30 in the morning, it's a little wild, but it was exciting to see it. So this year it's on December 3rd. We would love to have you. I've provided a flyer that gives some information on it if you'd like. We can't express how much we appreciate the gift of funds that you've given us. You were able to help 100 kids out of those 400 plus. On that one shopping day, we shopped for 400. The next week, we shopped for an additional 100, giving us about 500 children, including special needs kids, and especially those struggling financially. So with that in mind, you helped over 100 children, and we can't thank you enough for that. Fortunately, this year, we had some additional donors, so we didn't necessarily apply for the grant. There's a lot of charities out there that we want to make sure everyone gets their fair share. We look forward to putting our application in again and hope to see all of you at shopping on December 3rd. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Placer Advanced Robotics and Technology.
make the 1 minute announcement when it's yellow. Do you want me to say that or no? I said it already. Oh, you did? Okay. I couldn't remember.
Okay, we're gonna tag team. There's 4 of us. By the way, there's handouts. I don't know if they were given. They were perfect. Hi, I'm Vasu Valarapalli. We're with Plaza Robotics. I think we're pretty coordinated on that. We're robotics education for primarily kids, but we're starting to expand. And at the end of all 3 of them, I'm going to come back and share some exciting news about what we're doing a couple of blocks from here. So thank you for the funding. We were able to actually expand Plaza Robotics. We're 200. We support 200 students now. With summer camps and all that we've been able to do, it's actually closer to 400. It's amazing, this growth, and the city of Roseville and the funding we got was instrumental. So we were able to roll out 4 key programs. I'm gonna have Arya here. So Arya is the president of Plaza Robotics, Blake co-president, Ria is vice president. So quickly.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you guys about the Girl Powered initiative that we have in our club. And I've been part of the program since I was 11 years old, right? And I want to just address the gender gap that's very common in the STEM field. So thanks to your funding, we were able to have 2 actually annual Girl Powered workshops. Our first one was September 2022. That's a typo in the slide. And honestly, it's been a great experience, and we couldn't have done it without you guys' help.
It was done in partnership with HP and Google, by the way.
Yeah, so,
In Roseville.
yeah. And then we also had 2 Roseville teams that were additionally implemented into the PART program, and one of those was a Girl Power team, which is exciting. And yeah, honestly, overall in our entire club, there's been a lot more girl participation, so, yeah.
Blake?
We also helped Oakmont High School develop their new high school competition robotics program, and they had 3 new teams this year. And we also got them a grant from the REC Foundation and coordinated that so they could pay for their new equipment.
From our summer camps, we saw like a great response and interest in VexIQ. So from that, we were able to launch a league where there are multiple teams participating, and they meet every few weeks and then have a competition every month.
Yeah,
It was
and that's
right
tailored-
across. Roseville Venture Lab was a great friend and a partner. So finally, the exciting news is that we're moving. We're Loomis-based. We're moving to downtown Roseville. So we're 643 Vernon. So this is in partnership with Mercy Housing. So our expansion now is to provide these services and education to affordable housing, people residents in the affordable housing. So this is a great partnership with Mercy Housing. We're looking forward to be here in a month from now. So everything's going to be run out of Roseville going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from Placer County Law Enforcement Chaplaincy? Oh, yes, come on down.
Thank you for this opportunity, Commissioners. Appreciate your stewardship of the city's funds with the sale. That's an inspiring thing for us. My name is Mike Boone. I am the Senior Chaplain and Executive Director of Placer County Law Enforcement Chaplaincy. As I listened to our colleague from Lighthouse, I lost track, but probably 4 or 5 of those situations that he mentioned were trauma-related, with fatality as part of that trauma. Very likely, we were an organization that was on scene with those individuals in the first few hours of that trauma. And so it's great to have the support of them and other resources in the county to be able to refer to when we leave, because we're just first response and trauma care. In 2022, my chaplains, most of them volunteers, I had 35 volunteers, put in over 30,000 hours of volunteer time. And in the course of 2027, we responded to 267 calls for service in 2022. This year, In calendar year 2023, we're already on pace for a 20% increase in that number to about 320 to 325 calls for service. Even this morning, we were called before noon. We went out to 3 different calls in Roseville, Lincoln, and Rockland to respond to individuals who had lost family members since last night into the morning. The value that you support is, according to Independent Sector. Independent Sector is an organization, a national organization, that gives, one of the things they do is give value to a volunteer hour. And in California for 2022, that volunteer hour was worth $36.63. With the time that my volunteer chaplains put in, that meant that Placer County and then Roseville, who gets about 35% of our call-outs, that's $1.6 million of volunteer time that they provide to the county, and of course 35% of that specifically to Roseville. So your funds are multiplied. They're very much appreciated, and I thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Anyone from Keaton's Child Cancer Alliance? Okay. Next, we have St. Vincent de Paul Society.
I'm amazed everybody can go under 3 minutes. Hi, I'm Tom Stanko. I'm the current vice president of St. Vincent de Paul Society in Roseville. We received funding in the 22-23 fiscal year for our food locker program. Our food locker program started in January of 1984 and has run continuously since then. In this last fiscal year, we averaged 947 household visits to our food locker, and during 2023, and the groceries distributed provided the ingredients to prepare 327,000 meals for those folks in our food locker. In that same fiscal year, we saw an increase of 32% of clients coming to our food locker. That's an amazing number, but we've been able to feed them all, but as best we can, but I don't know where it's going to end. Our mission is to prevent hunger and homelessness. And in order to measure if we're having any success in meeting our mission, we ask our food locker clients to fill out a questionnaire each January. These questions regard food security and preventing homelessness. One question asks if anybody in our household has skipped a meal in the last year. 14% of the household said yes, somebody in our household involuntarily skipped a meal in the last year. That's too high a number for us, but it's better than the 20% from 2022. So we're making a little dent in that, but we'll continue to do our best to get that down as close to zero as possible. Another question asks about how important the food locker is into helping them meet their household budget each month. Obviously, if you can have food provided or a good part of your food provided, that helps towards making your budget. We ask these clients, if you did not have the St. Vincent's food locker, would you be able to meet your household budget? 68% said no. That's amazing too. Third question is, if you did not have access to the food locker, would you or your family be homeless? 20% said they probably would be. 42% said they thought they might be too. So it's a very, very large number of people living on the edge. One last thing I'm going to say, because I'm just about out of time, is we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year in September, and we're having a dinner celebration at St. Rose Church. And I'd like to invite all of you to consider coming. You can get tickets online at www.placersvdp. We'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Next is Sierra College Foundation.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Noelle Calvert. I'm the Development Director at Sierra College Foundation. And we have the wonderful task of helping the students and programs of Sierra College so they can be successful. I'm here to tell you about our ARPA grant. The goal of this grant, when we wrote it, was to help up to 100 students from the Roseville area be successful, get them the tools they needed so they could stay on track and complete their education. Thanks to the city of Roseville, we're doing it. We've been able to help we've provided wraparound care, including housing, food, transportation. It varies. It's student by student that we're working on. I have to say the timing of this was perfect. We got the funding in January, and that's the same exact time that the Basic Needs Center opened on campus. And that's a new program. It's a one-stop center on campus. You can't miss it. It's between the cafeteria and the bookstore. And it's where students come so they can just tell their story one time. We're trying to make it easier for students to get help. So the foundation works with financial aid and the Basic Needs Center, and every request is assessed, and we do what we can to help our students because we want them to stay on track. When we wrote this grant, it was before the Basic Needs Center. We figured we'd help about 454 students is what we were thinking, 100 of which would be from the Roseville area. I got the numbers today from spring semester. 886 students, unique students came through, 147 of which were from Roseville. Provided housing for students who didn't know what else was going to happen, food. And I should say, I was talking to the Placer Food Bank. Students come to us for food, but our staff ask those second and third questions. And we've discovered domestic violence situations and homelessness and all these things, so we're able to help more than ever. So it's terrible, but we're so appreciative for your help because the demand was so much higher than we expected, and because of you, we could meet it. So fall semester just started, and the numbers are going to be even higher by the time that we report to you in December. I'm almost a red, so I can't tell you my story about the professor who is reporting on. Please just know that this is making a huge impact on students. They're telling us that this is saving their lives. This is keeping them on track. They're able to provide for their own families, and you made this possible, so thank you so much.
Next, we have the Roseville Police Activities League.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Jamie Hazen. I'm the Executive Director for the Roseville Police Activities League, and thank you for allowing us this opportunity tonight to share our story with you. The Roseville Police Activities League encourages involvement from underserved children ages 8 through 17, but we accept all Roseville children in that age group. Our mission is to enrich the lives of Roseville youth by building positive relationships between youth, police officers, and our community through a broad range of accessible and affordable activities. Our programs consist of boxing, taekwondo, summer camp, homework help, fall, winter, and spring programs, and Junior Giants baseball. And I'd like to note that we are entering our 30th year as a nonprofit in Roseville. The 2023 grant funding assisted us in providing summer camp to Roseville youth. Roseville PAL summer program overview highlights include that we served an average of 30 kids per day. We partnered with the Placer County Department of Health and Human Services to provide cooking classes to teach healthy snacks and meals. Many of our kids don't get healthy snacks or meals, and they don't know how to prepare them either. We brought in Sammy Kadar from Sammy's Circuit for a fun day of exercise and encouragement. He makes it fun and interactive for the kids, and they don't even realize that they're exercising. The end of the season party we had with a large water slide, we had pizza, we had snow cones. The kids absolutely loved that. We took a lot of pictures, and there was huge smiles on their face as they slid down the little water slide. Some of you hopefully may have seen those on Facebook. They're very cute. We had drop-ins from the Roseville Police Department officers to hang out with the kids and get to know them and encourage them. Our daily curriculum included movement programs as well as art and enrichment lessons. We purchased bread, lunch meat, and snacks to ensure everybody had a free meal. Roseville PAL spent $14,000 in staff costs. Our grant was for $10,500. Our general fund paid the balance of staff costs and supplemented all of the program costs in the summer of 2022. We just want to share our gratitude with the Grants Advisory Commission and give you our heartfelt thank you. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next is the Pedal Connection.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Erie, and I am the founder of the Pedal Connection. And what we do, if you obviously know, that we spread joy through the gift of fresh flowers. And I wanted to give you a little quick, we call it Grow a Row because in 2020 we were trying to figure out, we have the people, we have the volunteers, how can we get more bouquets into the hands of hospice patients and seniors and Meals on Wheels recipients? And I think, Ellison, you were with us one day at the shop and we were like, oh, we're just going to ask local growers to dedicate a row to us. So we were calling it Grow a Row. And it went so well that year, we thought, why don't we start growing our own flowers? So in 2021, we started growing our own flowers to supplement our bouquets, to spread joy to those in end of life care. And it was amazing. The flowers we've got, the people that stepped up, Orangeville Food Bank, Hart's Landing Ranch supported us with space, and a private home in Auburn. And our reach became bigger. Thousands and thousands of more people got to know that they matter in this world. So then we wrote Cultivating Grow a Row, another grant for this awesome program. And each of our footprints this year have doubled in size. And just the size, the amount of flowers that come into the door are grown. We were able to also grow our volunteers. We had quite a waiting list because it's a joyful thing to do. And we were getting more people in the community in volunteering with our nonprofit and making more spectacular bouquets, sending them out into the community. And it really changed our mission. Our mission, we were always getting our flowers from grocers or weddings or events, and it's so unknown. And when we started growing our own flowers, we know what's coming in, we know the quality that's coming in, and we know that what's going out is spreading such beauty and joy. And it's just a magical place to be in when they come in. It serves all of our volunteers. The mood that comes in, we invite you all to come to our shop. I know Scott came in last week, it was beautiful. But just the difference that we can make in our community with such a small act of kindness is really, we are going to reach our 10-year anniversary here in October. We started in my garage in 2013, and really we are also with 10 years about to hit 100,000 bouquets, which is mind-baffling to know that 100,000 people in our community know they matter, but we know that the number is even more that people it's touched. And your support of this program and growing has been pivotal to what we've done. Like I said, you've changed our mission by letting us and helping us grow more, and in turn that word grow is going to stay in our vocabulary. There's no end to what we can do. I wanted to thank you quickly. I know for the ARPA funds. We just moved to Roseville too. With all the growth and our amazing volunteers, we have almost 200 active volunteers. So we were able just to rent a new space over here in Roseville, a larger space that is we've just boomed. I mean, it's so exciting, and it really could not be done without your support. Like I said, I come to tears a lot. Seniors matter, and a lot of times they get forgotten in our community, and we're just grateful that you allow us to spread some joy in their lives. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Next is Child Advocates of Placer County.
Are we allowed to pass something out?
I'm looking at staff.
Sure. Hand it to us, we'll provide it later. Thank you. I'm Don Kleinfelder, the Executive Director of Child Advocates of Placer County.
And I'm Katja Pullman, Director of Family Services.
We have an ARPA grant and a citizens benefit. We don't get 6 minutes, though, right? So we have for the CASA program, the Family Mentor Program, and the Prosper Placer Program. But what we really want to talk about is our whole family approach, how all 3 programs come together, and that's what the handout will talk about. But very briefly, CDC and other organizations have identified risk factors, homelessness, violence in the home, but most of them relate to poverty. And they also identified 5 protective factors, and I'm not going to go through them all, but you'll see them in your handout. What we're really proud of is that our programs hit on all 5 protective factors, and to demonstrate that, Katya is going to...
Yes, I want to share a story with you of one of the families we serve and also illustrate to you how we help this family. So this is a young couple. They're 19 years old. They're former foster youth. She's pregnant. Dad has to go to jail. While he's in jail, mom gets a microbaby, 1.5 pounds in the 28th week. She barely visits the baby in the hospital. She has never had a parent. She doesn't know how to connect to that baby. So she visits this baby once a week. She gives milk, and the hospital is concerned, so they test the milk. It's positive for substance abuse. The baby is detained. That's when we come in. So this baby goes to a foster home. They get a CASA. This CASA has the task to visit this baby once a week and really check, does it get everything they need? Does it meet all the milestones? So next thing we do is we provide them with another set of volunteers, this couple. So dad has been out of jail. We meet with this couple because we want to make sure that this couple gets this baby back. Time is ticking, especially if the baby is so young. So we have a team that surrounds them. They meet with them every week. This couple is super angry. They're blaming everybody else. Everything is out of their control. So it's a long process until they gain their trust. We have staff with lived experience that meets with them. We finally separate that couple because the relationship is not going well. Dad is homeless, but he goes to the Gathering Inn, and it's a miracle that the court gives him custody back. It's against all odds. Dad goes to the VOA. We help him find housing over there. And I just saw him at the VOA the other week. He dresses baby super nicely. She's cute. He makes her little braids. Baby is clean. The CASA continues that support, shows him how to parent, and our mentors surround them and really... so far, fingers crossed, they're doing well. Dad found a job, so did mom. So I just want to give you an example of what we do, and we have worked with this family for over a year, and we'll continue working with them. So thank you so much for giving us that opportunity, and thank you for all of you what you do.
Next, we have Defending the Cause Regional Alliance.
My name's Tiffany Leffler. I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance, and we support at-risk youth throughout the greater Sacramento area, and that includes foster youth, youth aging out of foster care, refugee families, women experiencing unplanned or emergency pregnancies, as well as any child who's experienced trauma. We partner with several of the organizations in this room, and you've heard their stories, right? Trauma is everywhere. The CDC just released its latest statistic that says that 2/3 of kids will experience a major childhood trauma before they turn 16. And so our goal at the Alliance is to mobilize our community to get involved. And the Love in Action program was what we received grant funding for in the 2022-2023 cycle. And that program really creates opportunities for members of the community, members of the city of Roseville, to get involved in making a difference. Not everyone's called to be a foster parent or a CASA, or has a counseling degree, but there's so many ways that people can get involved. And so our Love in Action program highlights donation opportunities and volunteer opportunities right here in our community. We had a huge overhaul to that program in 2020, so this grant was extremely well timed. We were accelerating our area needs database. We wanted to make it easy for people to go online where they're already at, scrolling social media, but actually scroll through donated items that would make a difference for kids and families. And so we spent a year in development taking a donation platform that did volunteer management and transforming it to also do donation management. So grant funding helped us work with the software developers to turn something that was effective in one category into a two-category system. We also launched donation drives 3 times a year that year, and we'll continue to run those, but we do an emergency bedding and supply drive in the spring. We do a backpack drive for back to school, and then we do a huge holiday difference makers campaign where we're making a difference for at-risk youth and families during the holiday season. During the grant cycle in 2022, that Love in Action program brought in 16,000 items that served 3,383 youth here in our region. 60% of those youth live in and around the city of Roseville. We also were part of that process of revamping what this program gives funding to, and one of the tenets was to create an environment that was inclusive, kind, and generous. And so the Love in Action program invites people in our community to get involved in serving these amazing organizations that are on the front lines, and we get to be a pass-through. So everything given through the Alliance is given out through Lighthouse and Compassion Planet and Child Advocates of Placer County and Wayfinder Families, as well as 29 other organizations that receive donations that they could give out for kids and families. So thank you so much for this grant. We paid it forward to all of those other organizations and look forward to continuing to do that in the years to come.
Thank you. Next is Lilliput Children's Services.
Good evening. My name is Donnie DeBolt. I'm the Associate Director of Development with Wayfinder Family Services. We merged with Lilliput Children's Services 4 years ago, and COVID caught us by surprise, so we didn't change our name until January of this year. But we are delighted to be here this evening to thank you for not only last fiscal year's $5,000 grant, but the renewal of our grant this year at $10,000. We are now one of the largest foster adoption agencies in the state of California, and we provide services in child welfare, visual impairment, and multiple disabilities. These are critical intersecting areas that no other agency in the state of California works with. We serve approximately 22,000 families a year. Our Kinship Support Services program, which this grant helped, is a critical service for our community. And unfortunately, our contract with Placer County covers a lot, but it doesn't cover the emergency needs that we find our kinship families need so much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tanya Fontenot. I'm the Associate VP of Programs and Clinical Programs at Wayfinder. Thank you so much for your grant. I'm going to talk specifically about the kinship program, which this grant supported. Our kinship services program in Placer County serves many residents in Roseville, and it is for relatives who have stepped up to raise a child in their family. It is not uncommon that we get calls from grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins that they have a relative in their care. It's really avoiding these kids going into the foster care system, so it's preventative. There's a lot of research that shows that kids do better when they're with their family. So our kinship program supports these relatives. We walk them through obtaining guardianship. We connect them to one another so they know they're not alone. A lot of grandparents feel that they're alone. There's shame associated with raising one of their kids. So we connect them with one another so they know they're not alone. They know they can do it. We help them with any parenting that they need. We have a social worker and a parent partner. Our parent partner is a grandmother who raised her own grandchildren. We have support groups where they can come in and just talk about what's going on and also, again, know they're not alone. I have 20 seconds left. So really, most of the calls we get are crisis, like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. I don't have a car seat. I don't have diapers. And with these kids' grocery bills, the grant went towards gift cards for groceries. We help pay utility bills when things are tight. Groceries, electricity, really emergency funds. We have a toy shop for grandparents where they come in, we wrap, they choose gifts, they're donated, many from the Alliance Defending the Cause, and they leave with gifts. And I can't tell you how many grandparents look at us and say, thank you so much. I have presents to put under the tree for my grandchildren. which is huge. And they're wrapped and they leave able to take a break. So your support is incredibly important. The emergency needs, the contract does not cover. Now more than ever, there are emergency needs and groceries are expensive. We also listen to our caregivers, and many of our caregivers are in Roseville. We are opening a new office in Roseville, right on Eureka, to have our support groups and to support the relatives in the Roseville area. So we're super excited. Also, oh, I'm out.
You
I'm red.
are. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. And that covers the Citizens Benefit Fund, the REACH recipients, and some of the ARPA. Now we're moving to just the ARPA. So I would like to invite Compassion Planet.
My name is Scott Flanagan. I'm the Executive Director of Compassion Planet. It's an honor to be with amazing groups that we collaborate a lot with. And I want to thank you so much for your generosity. We're an organization that invests our time and our services with young people who have aged out of the foster system. We serve young people from juvenile justice and also some with learning disabilities. Our mission really is to help young people achieve independence. So we work with that 18 to 24-year-old. And we say, in order for them to be independent, well, there's two things that they need. One is they need to be employable. Most of the youth, if not all the youth, are unemployable. By that, I mean they could go out and get a job because there's jobs everywhere, but they probably won't keep it longer than a few weeks. And so we want to teach them employability skills and eventually help them to find a career path where they don't have to work at Taco Bell the rest of their life, right? Then we also provide therapy, and we say that with our psychoeducational groups, we say to our young people, if you don't resolve some of the barriers, the baggage, some of the brokenness, and find healing in your life, the chances are you're going to bring that with you into the workplace. And because of that, it'll probably really bring some trauma to the workplace, and you won't be able to keep a job. So the therapy plus the workforce development piece is what we do. We have numerous social enterprises in Placer County. That's where our young people find employment and they get their employability skills. And this grant that we received from you, which we're greatly appreciative of, it has invested in 12 Roseville youth who reside here. And I just want to let you know, out of those 12, each of them have found durable employment. There are some who are still in our program, and all but one who left our program early for really some mental health services that she needed. She wound up at the Blossom House up in Auburn. The rest of them are either employed or they're currently in our programs. And our programs provide services for 13 to 18 months that are direct services mentoring program. It'll be anywhere from 1,800 to about 2,500 hours of services, which again, playability and psychoeducational therapy. And then once they graduate, we provide a lifetime of services because our young people, if they're not connected, they're going to wind up homeless, incarcerated, trafficked, and early rates of suicide. And so we have these family bonds that we hold with our young people for life, and we're able to track them for life. And if they reach a place in their life where they need emergency services, we present a team to them and we provide the resources to help them get through that. So our 12 youth that you invested in are doing well, and I want to thank you so much for all that you did.
Thank you. Anyone here from Take Note Troop?
Thanks for having us here tonight. My name is Michael Thomas. I'm the Director of Development for Take Note Troop, and I brought with me Rachel Polson and Trevor Soulier, who are both participants in our program. We're all going to try to keep ours under a minute so that you can hear from all of us. We did bring a little handout there, but we are a youth development organization here in Roseville that uses theater and improv to teach happiness skills to youth, to children and youth. And we recently, after 19 years of subletting space, in 2022, we finally got our own dedicated rehearsal space, and your grant helped us put together a black box theater for performances. Originally, this was intended for our monthly improv shows and for small recital shows, but I don't know if you're aware the State Theater in Auburn, where we usually do our big performances, has had some serious damage and is closed. And so we're so grateful we have upgraded lighting, sound, and our own and seating, our own little black box, thanks to your generous grant that's going to allow us to move forward with our fall productions that were scheduled to take place at the State Theater. We are Shakespeare in the Park. It was our 20th year of Shakespeare in the Park this year. We performed in Roseville, and over the course of all of our performances had almost 5,000 people at those free in the park performances. So many of those people who came and participated who as audience members were Roseville residents, and we're just really grateful for your support in helping us to build happiness skills and produce family-friendly, uplifting entertainment for the community that's accessible to all. Oops, sorry guys, we've got 30 seconds each here. Okay.
I'm Rachel Fulson. I'm 17 years old, and I've been with TNT since I was 10, so 7 years now. And I can say that TNT has changed my life in all the best ways possible. I love TNT. The happiness skills that they taught me have helped me through so many difficult things in life. And I am now that I'm a senior in high school, have the opportunity to improve my leadership skills by mentoring younger kids that were the age that I was when I joined TNT. I coach kids ages 8 to 11 in their happiness skills, their play theory skills, as well as theater techniques. And I'm just so grateful for TNT and everything that they provided for me in my life.
My name is Trevor Soulier. I'm 16 and I've been doing this since I was 8. So I've been doing it for 8 years, half my life. And I can honestly say, just like echoing Rachel, like it changes lives. It really does. Like the emotional and mental health and the environment there that supports high quality thinking can strengthen individuals, which strengthen families, which strengthen the community here. And yeah, we're very grateful. I'm so grateful for you guys supporting us, and best time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to ask Placer County Law Enforcement Chaplaincy if they want to speak a little more on ARPA. Are you feeling good? No pressure. Technically, you're on here twice. Okay, you're good. All right, next we have is Blue Line Arts.
Hello, members of the Grants Committee. Thank you all so much for what you do for the community. My name is Mary Tess Mayall. I'm the Executive Director at Blue Line Arts. Our organization was so grateful to receive $20,000 for the ARPA grant, which went directly to delivering our Tour, Talk, and Create sessions for 1,000 students from Title I schools here in Roseville. So just to give you a little bit of background, the Tour, Talk, and Create program is a field trip program that is designed to provide impactful arts education experiences for kindergarten through 12th graders. Each hour-and-a-half session is thoughtfully designed to meet the California National Core Art Standards. The first half of every visit is a guided tour in the gallery, so we have a professional teaching artist lead them through and ask them engaging questions that analyze, interpret, and evaluate the art that they're seeing. And then the second half of the visit is the exciting part. The students get to be the artists, and our teaching artist leads them step by step through a project that they that is inspired by the work they're seeing in the gallery. These creative activities all vary along with our exhibition calendars that change every 6 weeks, so it's always something completely new for them. Since we received these funds, our team has engaged directly with the teachers to have them sign up and be scheduled. So far, we've had over 50 teachers sign up from over 12 different schools, mostly from the Roseville City School District. The highest number of signups have been from Catherine Gates, Junction, Ferris Spanger, Kirby, and Fitment Farm. And last week, as of last week, we have served 411 students through this program. And within the next 3 months, we have over 600 students scheduled to come in for their Tour, Talk, and Create sessions. So by the end of the year, we will have surpassed our goal of 1,000 students served through the end of the year. Just in closing, I'd like to share some insightful results we've gathered from the teacher surveys so far. So 90% of the teachers reported having been better equipped and more confident in their ability to incorporate art standards in their classrooms. 98% of the teachers reported that they do not have any other visual arts programming being offered in their schools. So this is really the only chance that their students are getting this experience. And 100% of them have said that this program improved their students' ability to think and talk about art. And then anecdotally, I have like 2 more seconds left. We've also heard from teachers that they're amazed that their ESL and lower academic students are the ones that are the most engaged in this program. So thank you all so much for all that you do. And yeah, thank you.
The Pedal Connection, would you like to add anything more with the ARPA? No, okay, just wanted to ask. Similar with Placer Food Bank, anything else you want to add with ARPA?
Yes. We were tag teaming. Hello again. And unlike the equipment purchased with the Citizens Benefit, our ARPA funds were used for our pantry to go drive-through distribution, which are location in Roseville, and it's a lovely sight to see. It's a sad sight to see. It's just a drive-through convenient way for families to not have to worry about getting a sitter or anything. Just drive through. They pop their trunks, and our lovely volunteers load their cars. I believe it's anywhere from 25 to 50 pounds of food per distribution. We welcome you to come visit and experience it. So the funds were used specifically for our Roseville location, but we do have 10 throughout our service area of drive-through pantry to-go locations. So thank you so much for the funding and for filling the need and the gap.
Sierra College Foundation, if you want to add anything else to ARPA. Oh, okay. And anyone from Keaton's Child Cancer Alliance? Nope, okay. Did I miss anyone? All right. Well, now I would like to open it up for any comments of the commissioners have regarding.
I can go. This is exciting to see everybody here tonight. And I guess just to clarify, I heard a lot of thank you commissioners for the money, and I want to give a little bit of a background in regards to why we're all here tonight. Firstly, it was back in the early 90s when Roseville sold their municipal hospital, community hospital, and took that funds and put that in an investment account and decided to then take whatever is gained in that investment, take a portion of that, and turn that back into nonprofits that were doing amazing work in the community. Since that time, I think the count is over $17 million has been turned back into the community. And so it's not us doing that work. It's the decisions and the direction that was set 20 years ago or 30 years ago now to have these funds available for nonprofits that are doing work in the community. So it's their insight 30 years ago, it's the continuation of that program, but it really is all the work that you're doing. So this is an opportunity for you to be able to celebrate that. It did me good to see everybody connected out there so I could tell that you're all working together. And that's the fabric that makes Roseville a special place, and being able to feed back into that. It was apparent when we did our needs assessment a couple years ago. The Kone, the consultant that we hired to do that, came in and said, this is something special. This is something that is different than most communities. This is an opportunity to be able to have those special things. But what they also found out during that time was the community didn't really know about what was going on and that this program is available. And they also identified that there wasn't a lot of nonprofits that didn't understand the process in regards to how to be able to tap into some of these funds to do things. So that's why we're here tonight. So you're telling us your celebrations of the things that you're able to do in the community, and then as this word gets out, it will just enhance the programs as we continue to move forward, and hopefully the connections in those that do make Roseville this special place. So it's not about us. It's about the work that you're doing, and it's just an opportunity to be able to celebrate that, and then also let the community know what's happening here and to be able to celebrate that. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and continue to look to that.
I'll echo what Commissioner Chris says. I've been on this commission a long time, and it's been a pleasure to not only see familiar faces in the audience, new faces, but to see how the program's grown and how many more nonprofits we have coming in with applications. Thank you all for what you do, and I hope eventually, when I'm off the commission, that maybe we can work together in some capacity. So again, thank you for everything you do, and for sharing your passion with all of us, both here today as well as in your grant applications.
Does anyone on the commission have any questions regarding the presentations?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to, again, echo what our other commissioners have said. I think it's so cool, though, to see just the range of services from different stages in life, from different situations in life. And it's exciting also, as Commissioner Cruz mentioned, that you guys know each other. And if there are any here that don't know each other, I just encourage you to use this as a networking opportunity, share about the experiences. There's a lot of learning that happens, from one organization who's doing something similar but not quite the same way or not quite the same target audience. And just again, thank you for all the work that you do. It is nice to see all the familiar faces, and I'm sure you guys have other partners out there too. So this past year we had I call it the bonus round, the ARPA money, and then there was extra funds from that the city had dedicated to ongoing grant applications. So last year, this year, and this coming up cycle, we have a little more than what the interest rates these days have been providing. So these would be the opportunities that, if you have new plans or want to expand programs and just see the needs in our community and want to have financial help. We can't fund everything, but there's lots of good work that's happening, and we want to support whatever we can. So thank you.
Okay. All right. And I also want to say thank you. I really appreciate hearing all of you and your stories and how personal you make it by coming out here and letting us know what's happening in your organization and how many people you reach and the populations you serve. So now I would like to open it to public comment if anyone has anything.
So I just want to give you all a little invitation, because I didn't talk about our Citizens Benefit Fund. Our REACH grant that we received is for a new mural here in Roseville, the largest mural in Roseville, and you might have noticed some activity. So the mural artist and their assistant is actually painting the back of the Roseville Theater Arts Academy building, started on Monday. And this Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m., we're going to have an event out there. So if you're interested in meeting the artist and seeing him paint the largest painting in Roseville, we welcome you all to come out and check it out. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment. We'll now move to item 6.2, application process recommendations, and I will hand it over to Toby.
All right. Well, good evening, Commissioners. I just want to take some time to review with you the staff process, that grant funding application that we go through. Historically, staff has started the review process with verifying the annual report from the prior year of funding has been completed and turned in. Once that has been done, staff will verify the required documentation is attached to the application and is the correct documentation. At that time, the required documentation consists of board authorization form, an assurance and certification form, a copy of the current 501c3 or a 501c4, a copy of the agency's registration renewal fee report, which is considered RRF1, a copy of the agency's current fiscal year budget, a copy of Roseville, the City of Roseville business license. You need a copy of the organization's active registration with the Secretary of State, list of board members or key personnel, recent audited financial statements, internal financial statements, and then if applicable, their proof of ownership or copy of lease if they're doing any property improvements, and then 3 written estimates from vendor capital expenditures or property improvements. After reviewing all the mentioned items, staff works with the applicant on correcting minor issues with their application. Most of the communication is done via email, which is not, or hasn't been very efficient. And after hearing your discussion during the funding meeting, staff have decided to take a more robust and active role in the review process and the required documentation. Staff suggests creating an eligible determination period, kind of what we're calling it. This time period would allow for the scheduling of appointments to meet with applicants in person and review application issues. The new process may benefit newer applicants who are not familiar with the grant process and requirements. And failure to avail oneself of this opportunity by a date established by staff is automatic grounds for disqualification. Applicants must be submitted by the established initial application submittal deadline in full or otherwise face automatic disqualification. This is not intended for applicants to be able to submit placeholder applications. This eligibility determination period is meant to address inadvertent errors as well as manage expectations more formally upfront concerning the eligibility. The time frame for the entire staff review process is just shy of a month. Staff will monitor if this is enough time to complete the entire process and meet with the applicant, as was suggested, to kind of slowly integrate these changes. We will introduce this new eligibility determination period and go over in depth the required documentation at the January 9th applicant workshop meeting. And since these determinations are already within the purview of staff, no formal changes or council approval is necessary at this time. And this basically ends my presentation. It wasn't a long one, but just to kind of explain the process. And if you have any questions or discussion, feel free to answer that.
I have one question.
Yeah.
For experienced applicants. How is that process going to work in terms of any expectation that they're required to respond and say, no, we don't need a meeting? How is that process going to work?
The meeting is generally set up for, I can tell you, in going through the review process, if something is missing, then it's reaching out to them to set up that appointment. When we did it this past time, and it has in the past via email, it just takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So even having this kind of short period as a month, a lot of that is that back and forth. So this helps to hopefully eliminate that, to say, hey, this is the time period, bring your stuff in, let's go through it, and then that's kind of the only time that they'll be able to bring that in and go through it. We kind of looked at it as a little bit of kind of like your DMV appointment, when you go in with everything, and then you kind of check off. It's kind of what we're looking at.
But just to clarify, so in the event that a complete application is put in and it's determined complete, you just give them the green light and...
Yep, they won't hear from us. So generally, just this last time, the only applicants that heard from us if there was questions on their application or something was missing. So if they don't hear from us, then that means that everything, and they can see that in Zoom grants as well, that if everything's been turned in, so.
Okay, and it's been deemed complete for review.
Correct, I believe so, yeah.
Yes, and just to clarify and help you guys understand why we're trying to put something new like this into place, we got about 40 applications last year, and half of them we needed to contact because of missing information. Yeah. So it's a big job, and it takes a really, really long time. So we're just really trying to help make sure that these applications get completed, because if we don't hear from them in the time frame given, and we're just sending an email, then the application is deemed incomplete and we move on. So we're really trying to just contact them, just give them a fighting chance.
Got it. Thank you.
So I had some questions around this when I was reading through it. In other processes and other counties and other grants, both small and large, there's generally a checklist in the application. There's also a mandatory meeting for all folks that want to apply to attend that goes over the entire grant process, all the questions, all of those things. It's generally recorded. Nobody's allowed to speak until the end and ask their questions once all the presentation's been done. And only those that attend that meeting are able to then put in the applications. And if there's anything incomplete from them, they're disqualified. There isn't a second bite at the apple, so to speak. Is that something that we can look at for efficiencies? Because to your point, we've doubled in size in the year that I've been here, and I suspect that we'll continue to grow with the amount of growth that's happening in Roseville. So for efficiency's sake and to help the staff that have, full-time jobs, I'm just wondering if that's something that we could do, because that's a recorded option that then agencies can utilize and share with their staff to put those things together, make sure that the checklist is done beforehand. Is that something that would be possible?
I would say we kind of do some of those things now, and it makes me wonder. Now, we don't require them to attend the January workshop, but it's strongly advised it is recorded so they could watch it later. There is an opportunity to ask questions and then to email questions in afterwards. I think we do have a checklist, but I guess it just makes me feel like, maybe since you're all still here and didn't want to leave for our business stuff, is there something that's not clear if half of the applicants are still having trouble?
That's a significant number and a significant amount of time for folks.
Go ahead. Are you okay? And yes, you are right, Commissioner Carroll. We have a meeting. We haven't gotten to the point where we want to make it required. We do record it. We do, when people call and ask questions, we let them know, here's a link to the meeting, please watch it. We do want to make some changes to our meeting this year and have more examples of exactly what we're looking for in the application. When we say an RRF1, what does that mean? What does that look like? So we are going to make some changes to that and really try and provide some better examples of exactly what we're looking for, because those are the biggest issues. Sometimes it is just operator error. They're brand new. They've never done Zoom grants before. They don't know that, we'll give them a boards and assurances document that needs to be completed, but they're not really understanding, and they'll give us their insurance information. It's just there. So we're trying to be sensitive to, like the commissioners have talked about in the past, there are some people that have grant writers and they get everything in and it's done and it's perfect and it's 100%. And then there's others that don't have grant writers and this is their first time trying to put through an application. So we're trying to be sensitive to that. At the same time, trying to ensure that staff isn't overworked. So we're trying to do a happy medium. Our first idea was to require this meeting, and then we kind of ratcheted back and said, okay, what if we try it with the way that Toby has kind of explained? We'll start there, and maybe as time goes on, we'll get a little more stringent if the commission would like us to, if that's the direction the commission would like us to go.
And historically, it was always inferred that if you did not attend, your grant application might not be considered. It was never formal. It was kind of just the way it was done. Not saying it was the right way or the wrong way, just a little bit of context of partially how we got here. And so that's all. Thank you.
I have a question to staff. Was there, or I guess I can ask commissioners who have history as well on the commission, was there a particular area of the application? Because if we're having, as Commissioner Acosta brought up, 50%, you guys were saying there should be some type of process or something, or mandatory or something. Was there a certain area of the application that had a particular issue?
Typically, it is on the required documents list, the list that Toby went through. Again, it doesn't matter really which item it is. Each application had something different with it. So it's really that required document list, and that's why, like I said, in the January meeting, we want to have up on the PowerPoint this is what we're looking for. This is what it looks like. And, and we just want to be a lot more explicit. It's going to take a little bit more time, but I think it will be helpful to all of the applicants in the future.
And it also may be a phenomena of all the turnover in the boards, in the executive directors. I've been here this is my 10th year, and this is the first time we've had that many applications with issues. And some of you may know this. When I first started on the commission, we were reviewing for disqualifications. So that eventually shifted to staff, thankfully, your predecessors, which, pluses and minuses, and we've refined that process. So I really think that it's more about the knowledge drain in the organizations, not our process. Our process is good. We've worked very hard in the last 7, 8 years to get the process to where we are. So I don't want anybody watching or here to think that the process is the challenge. It's more about the brain drain in the organizations.
I would piggyback on that and agree with that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I would ask for that meeting to be mandatory. We are in unprecedented workforce times. I'm not sure if all of you have experienced it individually, but it is across the board and across agencies. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir for those that are still here. Just in the counseling field alone, we're going to be down 50,000 licensed professionals by 2025. And they're not coming through the colleges and the licensure process. So I think that's part of it. And with that, it is a lot of work. And I'm cognizant of workforce retention for those that are feeling the pinch and overworkedness. I think that going back and forth multiple times, I am very compassionate to the first and second time, grant submissions and understanding that there's a lot of questions, and also trying to balance that with our staff time and the amount of applicants that we get that are able to get through the process and all of those things, trying to balance all of that. I don't think requiring them attending the informational meeting is too much to ask at this point in order for them to meet that threshold. But yeah, there shouldn't be in my opinion, there shouldn't be a month of back and forth with different agencies about documentation.
And I like the idea of you setting a meeting time, and then that's a threshold.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and then we can discuss the mandatory meeting. Perhaps that's something we phase in. This year, we take the approach of staff's recommendation, see how it worked, and then we can certainly add in the mandatory meeting. I don't object to it. Having been on both sides, having attended, as a grant recipient, basically being told you need to go if you want this grant. So that's.
I wonder if we could make it more of a carrot approach in the sense of, hey, if you attend the meeting, then you get the additional maybe grace period or opportunity to clarify or resubmit if something, you submitted the insurance instead of the assurance or something like that. Whereas, I guess I feel like, it is an opportunity for people in the community. It's not a requirement, and it's kind of on the organizations applying to make sure they're understanding the process and following the rules. It's on us to make sure our process is clear, and it sounds like we think that, but we can make some improvements in January, and even just in how we present the information in general on the website, perhaps to go even further. I think that's incumbent on us. But then I wonder, rather than requiring the meeting, if it's, hey, there's a bonus if you attend the meeting, then you get something extra out of it. And that way we're not taxing you guys. I don't know when you were talking about taxing the workforce, we also have, our own people here that we want to make
That's
sure.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Absolutely. But also, all the different nonprofits. So many of these groups run on volunteers and other things, and they don't have a lot of time either. And I don't know how burdensome it is to come to meetings. So just something to think about. I wonder if we could kind of work it along those lines rather than, especially since we are recording it and they can watch it. I don't know if we have a way to verify they watched it and then they could qualify for whatever additional we want to give them, grace period or something.
The alternative is cutting off the time of responding to the questions. If you have this period of time you've gotten it back from staff, and you have a 2-week period to correct that, and if it's not corrected, it's a disqualification.
And I think that's part of the recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that, or there's just the deadline is the deadline. If you didn't get everything in by the deadline, then, and I don't, again, it's an opportunity for people who are still here to make comments on how burdensome that would be or how reasonable. But, yeah, I mean, there is a certain part of me that thinks, if I know I continually, the teacher who always accepts homework after the deadline means I don't have to do my homework by the deadline.
Correct.
So I don't know.
Have you guys gotten any feedback from organizations about the process? If it's difficult, or am I asking the big question here?
I know the commission does bring that up, but you guys will ask for feedback, and so we haven't heard from anybody in particularly. I think it was just after hearing some of the meetings and the comments of re-looking at this, and there is a lot of forms to definitely make sure and validate. And I know that when we say, like, for instance, a copy of a current 501c3, I've seen some as old as like the 1900s literally come through. And so it's like,
Some
okay,
of us
do we
resemble that
because
remark.
that's what they have. If it's, what was that?
I said some of us resemble that remark.
Some of them aren't going to have a newer one. They're just going to have the original one
Right.
back from, some of these organizations we've
1900s.
heard, are very aged.
And where
so-
do we fall? Is that they're, so it's making those determinations and communicating with the organizations about that. So there was a process talked about too with, doing a, we thought about, do you do a pre, like all this has to be turned in, and if it is, then you get the questions type of thing. With Zoom grants can do that. However, with all these changes, it's like, is that too much to throw on the organizations all at once? So it was kind of this gradual, maybe we try this and see if it works, and if that doesn't, then is there the next process that we can look at?
Yeah, I think this may have been an anomaly, given the number of new organizations we had come in this year.
And new funding.
And new funding.
And I think that drove it. Extra money means there's more
Exactly.
opportunity.
So I would venture to, I like Commissioner Carroll's carrot idea, yet that might be a little that might end up burdensome for staff just to keep track of everything. So this is a great compromise where we start the process and say, okay, we're going to handhold you one more time, and then we hold our ground. Maybe next year. You guys can decide that next year.
And that's more or less what we're already doing. It's just more via email versus actually setting that, instead of going back and forth and, if they're not there and
more
who are we
efficient.
it kind of just sets up that one-on-one time with staff and the organization to sit down and go, okay, this is what we're looking at. Do you have it all type of thing? And if they've got further questions, that they could go back and then come back with that. So
It's going to end up being more efficient because you just get it all done in one sitting. And things don't get lost in email.
For sure.
Well, I think I can go ahead and open it to public comment if anyone has anything. Oh, maybe one.
McDonald, Executive Director of Lighthouse Counseling and Family Resource Center. I just want to say that I appreciate everything that you do, and everybody has said that, but I also want to say that I appreciate staff. I've been without a grant writer for maybe 5 years. I've been with Lighthouse for 8 years, so I've been doing all the grants for the last at least 5 years. And the reason that we don't is because I'm actually better than most grant writers, and because I've been doing it for 20, 30 years. But I think that what was said, but should be repeated, is that nonprofits really struggle, that we are spread so thin that there's a reason I'm doing the grant writing, because we can't afford a grant writer. We can't afford a director of development. So I'm that and the grant writer, and I am an associate. That's pretty much it. So I think that, again, I want to thank staff, but even a seasoned grant writer, I've made mistakes. One of them I remember, and maybe this used to be the old process, is that when you verify that your board approved it, you had to show the the minutes, and then, but I submitted those, and I forgot, no, that's the assurances, and they reminded me, no, Gary, this is the form. So I would have missed the deadline had they done that. It was just a stupid error because I worked 60 hours a week. And then with the RFF1, for some reason, the state is sometimes behind, and it says it's not up to date, and it is up to date. And then you try to get a copy of the RFF1. There is no such thing as getting a copy of the RFF1. It's something else, and they say this is the only thing we can provide you when you want an updated copy. But if you go online, it says it's outdated. So I was thinking, we're going to miss the deadline because we're current. I even contacted our independent auditor, and I said, what's going on? And so again, I appreciate the grace, and I appreciate staff. Give us an opportunity for our very thin nonprofits to make it right. And in the last 4 or 5 years, I've made 2 or 3 mistakes. So I appreciate the opportunity. Again, even though I've done this every year, but I also do a lot of different grants, so sometimes I forget. So I think the process is good. I don't think it's a problem with you requiring people to be here. I've been here every year, even though I'm pretty sure I got it, but there's always this little something that's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, or that's new. Mm-hmm. So I would recommend that you make it required, but again, that is up to you, but I think it's a good reminder, and I generally pick something up every single time. It turned red 5 minutes ago, so I stopped.
Gary, I have a question, though. I have a question for you. So with this process that's being proposed, where the attendance is optional, we have it recorded and such, but if you have something that's incomplete on your application by the deadline, you would have to get an appointment and then come in with all your documentation. Do you feel like that's a better process?
I think it's somewhat redundant because in the times I made the mistakes, I had all the documents in, but one of the documents was incorrect, and they kindly said, Gary, no, this is the document. They sent it to me, and I go, oh, sorry. And so it was quickly fixed within 1 working day. And then the RFF1, that took me a week. I generally try to get it in like a week to 10 days early, and I'm hoping that they'll review it and say, Gary, so you may want to build in some time for the mistakes that old executive directors make.
Like a pre-review process or something. But yeah, we don't want to make too burdensome. I wonder if a compromise too would be, if you don't get the document, we contact you about something, we can set up an appointment for, March 16th. But if you get it to us before March 16th, you don't need to come in person for the meeting. Does that seem like a?
I have one question.
I don't think that the process as proposed, and we're talking about it from an informational standpoint this evening, it would preclude anybody from fixing something proactively through email. It's just the offer and the opportunity, if it's needed and somebody wants to avail themselves of it, to meet with us in person. If somebody doesn't respond to a communication that we send, whether in meeting or in email or at all, then that's going to be grounds for disqualification if we don't hear back. But certainly if somebody corrects something short of a meeting, that's not going to be held against them.
It's very reasonable.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank
you.
I want to echo what Gary said too. I feel like the process is very straightforward. At Blue Line Arts, we apply for a lot of grants through the California Arts Council too, and there is no grace period. You submit your application and then boom, that's it. If you mess up, then try again next year. So I think having a 2-week grace period afterwards is plenty. Thanks.
Thank you.
But the big concern is making sure that we don't take this as putting the placeholder application in there, right? So this is for the honest mistakes or the misunderstandings in regards to what the forms are, as opposed to just get it in and we'll deal with it later, which can happen.
That was, I would prefer it, I don't know, you can't require it before the deadline, but yeah, I have the same concern. I have a question, though, about the forms. Are they all City of Roseville required? Are those something that's the council requires? Is there any way of consolidating those pieces?
That'll be the next agenda item.
So can I interject? Let me go back to public comment. Does anyone else have any other? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public comment. Coming back to this item, any other questions regarding this agenda item?
Well, just clarification that this is only informational, we're not acting on it. And we're not having a meeting in October, so in November, we'll bring this back up again.
So currently, the eligibility determination is within staff's purview per the policy manual. And so really, we're informing that we're going to act on this, and this is going to be our approach this time, unless there's a more robust agendized change in a substantive form in our policy or process. But our intent is to solidify this time within our authority that we already have under the policy manual.
And to speak to the concerns from the commissioners about the placeholder applications, that's really going to come down to staff and them going through the pre-screening. It would be same as any other application that came in that's missing documentation. So to me, I'm not as fearful about those applications coming through simply because if the organizations put in placeholders, they're going to be disqualified. And if they don't, I'm in that mood. You do it or you lose out. So I think the process in place allows that to just be a closed issue. If not, we'll hear about it, I'm sure. So.
Now, as a newer commissioner, I do have a question about, I know Commissioner Parker mentioned about feedback from the organizations. Now, at the end of this process, do the grant recipients, the ones, even if they didn't qualify, can they give feedback to the city? Is there a way for them to do that? And how often is that reviewed?
I'm fairly certain that we've invited for feedback at the end of the process.
But I meant like a survey, like at the end, let's say I'm filling out forms for financial aid, they'll ask, sometimes we'll send or even the IRS is doing it these days at the end of you filing your taxes. Oh, how was the service, I was just wondering if they, right then, after they submit, that's all.
Yeah.
So we use Zoom grants. I don't believe that they have a survey type thing like that, but that's something that we could look into because, if there's anything that we can improve upon and something that they thought was confusing or something, it'd be good to ask right then and there. So it's a good question.
And just for the record, we hear about it if there are issues, believe me. So I'm not worried that we will hear if there are concerns in the community about the process.
Although I like your point, because we do ask, like normally at the grant funding meeting, we have a lot of interest in, and we say, if there's something through the discussion that made you feel like, hey, this is an improvement, but it's more of a, hey, come back in the fall when we're developing the new process. I do agree with Commissioner Haywood. We often, or others often hear about things, but at the same time, I can see if you're not sure if you're going to get funded, you're new, you don't want to make waves. I wonder if there would be an opportunity for doing like an anonymous right after they do it, because that's when it's top of mind. It's I just finished this, and this question was just so, I had no idea what you were, or something. And then, like I said, I like the idea of anonymous because it just, I know sometimes you just feel like I can't give my honest feedback because it's going to color how you're going to evaluate my organization, and that's,
I would agree with that. I think that they get our feedback when we're discussing the grants and doing the award process, like how they did in terms of filling out the application, things that we weren't clear, things that might have been missing. But we don't have that same opportunity other than them coming to those meetings and providing public comments. So I like the idea of a survey at the end as well.
I don't want to get too far off the agenda item that we're talking about, but certainly I think that we can, if you want us to take a look at that, come back to the commission and talk about that at a different time.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to the next agenda item, 6.3, review and approval of grant guidelines and proposed changes to the 24-25 funding cycle. Hand it to staff.
I'm going to be taking this item. So as the commission knows, typically each year we come before our new cycle and we look at all of our documentation. So the first thing, we've got 4 different sections, 4 different attachments, and we have them all on one agenda item because really they kind of all relate to each other. So we can kind of, however you guys want to do this, we can go through them one by one and then have a discussion at the end, or we can kind of discuss them one at a time. It's really, truly up to you and how you want to do it. But I'll just kind of walk you through the first item, which is attachment 1. It's our Citizens Benefit Fund Policy Manual. There are 2 suggested edits this year to the policy manual. The first one is for the bids required for capital items. I hope everyone had a chance to take a look at the large red line document, like a gut and amend type thing. And, you know, again, is this something that you want to discuss now and kind of take a look at and approve, or how do you guys want to do this? This is kind of meaty.
This was the only one that was the biggest when we were doing our awards in April. This is the one that I think took some of the most time at that. So I'd be willing to just, my thoughts on it at this point. And it was 2 applicants in regards to what was considered capital improvements. It was one of them that was looking for some kitchen equipment that should have had bids, but they didn't have it, so they were rejected at the time. Hopefully, through the new processes, we won't be making that decision here. That'll be something that'll be
That is
up
correct.
front.
Yes.
The other one was, there were capital expenditures, but it was for mobility equipment. And it was not knowing what the needs were going to be to the community that they served. They couldn't really submit bids for these items, not knowing what was going to come into their door and it's going to need to be needed. So that's where I think we've added in here additional explanation in the event that you don't have your bids and have a discussion. And then when I went and looked at the questions, we have yes and not applicable. There might be in that question opportunity to say not applicable or other, you know, to give a little explanation in regards to here's why we may be looking for capital expenditure money, but bids aren't appropriate at this point in what we're doing.
Right. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Chris, because I believe it is the attachment 3 where we are going to look at the actual application. And so at that point, if you wanted to wordsmith or add anything in for that application question, we absolutely can.
I believe the red lines, what were added in here, does give the option of being able to not put those in, or not have hard bids for equipment. It was added in here to give that flexibility. We just want to make sure that it's clearly stated in regards to, no, on that particular one, we do need to have bids.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Chris, are you referencing the section that says in the rare case that capital expenditure item or project is not conducive to bidding?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought that gave enough leeway to allow that provision in that particular case, and I'm sure there will be others.
I like the change of the word from items to expenditures. It's modern, changing the words as we, it's a living document. The change in the funding levels that are in each category, what is the rationale behind that? Is that
Arbitrary. I tried to look back and historically recreate some sort of tie to what the amounts look like, and it doesn't look like there is any real connection to anything on the city's purchasing side. We used to have a $5,000 limit for small purchases that tied some bid requirements, and with the latest charter review, that went away. And so now there truly is no tie besides the $75,000 council limit for providing those bids. So really, it was an arbitrary increase to get the ball rolling for conversation to see if we felt that those were comfortable increases to try this time, or if there was a different suggestion the commission wanted to discuss.
So I guess, and then my other question in relation to that is we have the ability of the lower cost items to be telephone written, which presumably would be the internet as well, versus the over the threshold, which have to be written.
Correct. So originally, it had this balance where there was an amount that was so low that there wasn't anything documented needed, a middle category for slightly more expensive, but not altogether very expensive items that allowed you to document that you had telephone bids or provide the written bids, and then a more expensive category which requires a real formal bid. And then that'll be reflected in, I think one of our material pieces is kind of a checklist where they document on that form and they submit that and attach it to the grant application that shows what type of bids, if any, they got. If they're telephone bids, they can check the box and then they can document that. Or if they're formal bids, they check that and attach those bids to that document. And a reminder for, but both of these, if we do anything with the policy manual, and so tonight we have the bid expenditure and the site visit policy, those will both have to go to council ultimately for approval with our recommendation, whatever that might look like this evening.
Another question. So we've got one in paragraph now 4. The online is removed.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the paragraph below, it's there. So are we allowing online?
Placeholder if the commission thought that online is distinguishable from written, or if we want to define online to mean and us understand that written means something that you print out, which includes online. So really a placeholder for discussion.
I think historically, I think we added that in.
Yeah.
Because there was a concern that some of these lower cost items could be purchased, like particularly I think it was computer equipment. I think it was the now defunct library foundation that was looking to buy ebooks. We were required in some of those cases to do bids, and I think we did online bids. We just printed the pages from Amazon or Best Buy or wherever it was. So in this day and age, do we want to continue that? Are there projects that are going to be looking at, they are going to only be buying like the robotics, are they only going to be buying their products from an online vendor? Versus a community band coming in and needing to purchase a tuba or put money towards a tuba for $5,000 from Tim's Music. They could also do that online too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to have the flexibility. I don't know why we wouldn't want to do online, or am I missing something?
The only point for clarification is whether or not written also includes online, or if we need to specifically call that out. To me, I think you could go either way. Written, to me, means if I print it out, it's a written thing versus you documenting a telephone call bid.
I say go for clarity and leave online in there.
Sure.
And would that only apply to that middle, that lower bid category? Because the higher specifically says written.
Yeah,
Doesn't reference online.
To me, it's kind of the formality, and if that's the distinction I'm getting out of this, it's falling in that upper category. You can't just go search around, how much does it cost to buy this car? You need to actually go to some place that could really provide that product to you and say, this is what we would charge you. That's what I was getting out of it, but I don't know if
you can buy
intended
cars
something else.
online now.
You can buy them on an app.
Yeah, you can go to eBay and buy a tuba.
Deliver
That's how
right
my
to
husband
you.
bought his.
But that's what I'm saying. Do we want to
to
make that distinction that it's not just anonymous person going online and finding how much this is versus I need to know to bring it into my organization, how much is it going to cost me, and I need a more formal, I'm connecting with that supplier. That's the distinction I was getting from this when I saw the written. But like I said, I don't know if that's what we're trying to tease out.
I agree with you, but there are organizations that may have these high-ticket items who can find their supplies online. We can buy refrigerators online. We can buy ovens online. So, I mean, yeah, that's where I'm thinking you.
I think this prevents them from buying it online. It just prevents them from giving us a screenshot of a catalog. It's a more formal step where I say, you know, in some cases maybe add to my shopping cart, but in other cases it's more, you know, company XYZ recognizes that nonprofit ABC wants to buy this and we can do it delivered for this much and it'll meet your specs or whatever.
So I would suggest that in the presentation in our January meeting, we define specifically the difference between a formal written bid and an online bid. I don't necessarily think that we need to change the wording here, but if we can provide that clarification for transparency, we won't run into problems with an organization trying to purchase a industrial kitchen table, and they're submitting 3, 1 or 2 online bids, thinking that's a written bid. Mm-hmm. So. It used to be so easy. It used to be a lot easier, a lot more straightforward.
So for clarification, it sounds like we're going to be moving one item at a time and then if we want to we're voting for each one. Okay.
When we come to the end, or you can do it as you go, it's totally up to you. You could have a motion now if you're comfortable and you want to finish up this one specific attachment and move on to the next within this agenda item, or wait until the end and we can try to gather and collect as many motions into one as possible.
I think we
do it
just
then.
do one at the end and just move to approve with the recommendations as noted.
Yeah, and especially because as we move through, there are especially with some of the attachments and the changes to the application, we may end up going back and looking at wording, and we'll be less bound and have to go back and undo.
Yes. So we might have done that once.
Or twice.
Are we good to look at attachment 2 then?
Do we want to do site visits?
Yeah, it's still attachment 1. If you flip to the next page, it's the site visits policy.
Yeah, so I have a question on this one. So I see your additional language at the bottom. I like that we're clarifying it's not just the actual location of the organization, but if they're holding some kind of an event. But what does it mean? Public events, often fundraisers that are available to anyone who wants to go. During that event, they are going to talk about their organization. They're trying to get money for the organization. But at the same time, it is a public event, and we're not necessarily, not everyone can do those outside of our grant application process. So what was the thinking about public events where we wouldn't be sitting together discussing business, where one out of 500 to 2,000 or more people clapping and excited to hear what the organization is doing, or just giving money and dancing or drinking or whatever we're doing. But what's the thinking with those?
Yeah, I think it's addressed historically in the middle paragraph there, which talks about really then you have the potential where different commissioners are working with different information that they've gathered from that. And it's not an even playing field when it comes to evaluating the applicant and the application.
Okay, so but that's what I guess I'm asking. So this is basically saying no public events during the grant cycle period.
Correct. From an applicant or a potential applicant within our purview, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, if a group is holding, so and I don't know, no one's left, but I was going to say Tommy Apostle Shopping Day on December 3rd, I don't think our applications are open yet, so that's still okay. Yep. But beyond that, from December 10th, 12th, whatever our date is, through the end of May-ish.
Yep, and that's historically how.
It's always been the way it's been.
Yeah. That's been the intent since it was stood up as a policy document, and for the 8 years that I've been doing it, that's been the interpretation passed on to me, was that during that period of time, it was a policy decision made and council approved that there's no site visits, which includes now the clarifying statement.
Okay, so since again, this is going to council because the view is this isn't our decision to make, it's council's decision. Council approves our recommendations for the funding. Does this apply to council? Because I don't see that happen. I mean, I'm not saying in the future, I'm saying today, past 8 years, however many, I've been on here longer than 8 years, that has not been happening?
It's a different level of review. I mean, we're doing the groundwork here and getting into the details of the applications, whereas council really isn't. And so they're taking a recommendation that's been given to it by an advisory body and really considering that recommendation as a whole with the ability to consider individual applications on an individual basis. But the spirit of the prohibition isn't the same as it would be for council as it is for us.
Okay. It sounds a little tortured as you say it between, again, they have the authority to approve this. They're approving the funding.
Sure.
So I think the same appearance of, you know, and different information that they have as they're going through the process, so.
I think this is helpful for people that are new and coming in to just outline everything in detail and.
Thank you.
No, I would just agree with that, especially with the Brown Act pieces that applies to us. I think I'm always on the side of caution because I don't want there to be any impropriety or any organization to not receive funding because of something just out of the goodness of our hearts. We want to go and see what they're doing and do all those things. But then having that cause them not to be able to be funded would be tragic, in my opinion. So I appreciate the clarification.
And I just want to say, historically, staff has done a good job explaining this, and I appreciate the codification officially in writing for all learning, for all people in all different ways of getting the information out.
I think it's helpful for our applicants as well. I mean, those that are awarded, they are grateful and they want to show off what they do, and we want to see what they do. So I think that providing that space over the summer months is more than enough. And that way, when we're saying, unfortunately, we can't because it's grant season, that's generally understood by this clarifying language. So it's not like I'm not coming to yours, but I'm going to go to theirs. It's across the board. We're not going to anybody's until this is done. So.
Okay, I think we can move to attachment 2 now.
So the grant guidelines, these are similar to last year. I have all 3 different funding sources all in the same document. Basically, we have updated the available funds. This year, we're looking at this a little earlier than typical, so we have ranges for the funding. We don't have current actual funds, except for the ARPA. We know that one's going to be $300,000. And then we just updated the new dates for the actual funding cycle. But this one is pretty status quo, but they do have to be approved by the Grants Commission, so. Just wondering if anyone had any edits or questions on this one.
Just since it's such a lengthy document, can you, I mean, I know on the table of contents where you've had changed references there, but in the body of the document, I see the website, but I don't think that's a change. I think that's just because it's a website, it got highlighted in blue. But
We're on the funding guidelines and not the policy manual.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was skipping ahead then.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm confused then. So after the site visit reference in here, when I flip the page, the next thing is the policy manual. So we skipped that and we moved to something else?
So the only 2 items that we made edits to in the policy manual this year were the site visits and the bid requirements. Everything else was status quo with the policy manual.
So you just attached the rest of it just as a reference, but there's nothing else in this document that was changed. Got it, okay.
Is this where I asked the question about the list of documents that are required in the policy manual?
Almost.
Next.
We're almost there. And you know what? There is a list in there.
It's in
Yes.
here.
Yes, but we're still on attachment 2.
So I
checking.
do, I do have a question because what, Jonathan, you brought up at the last meeting where we're going to change REACH. It's not CBF, it's REACH.
It's reflected.
Okay, so I was going to say, is that in
It is on the first page of that, and it is under eligibility. So I think it's the last sentence of the first paragraph that says the committee is comprised of employees and determined funds are to benefit youth, families, and seniors in the city of Roseville. It used to say Placer County. We did change that.
So I think we definitely, that is one to highlight in January, because that is a significant change, and we weren't always as tight with that with different applicants, where, since this does change it, I think that will be a call-out.
Yes. Yes, thank you for the reminder. We just went in there and made the change.
No, for some reason I was thinking blue, because I saw the blue on the other, so that's why when I went through it, I didn't realize.
So the changes on this document will be just the bold.
It just integrated. Mostly it's the funds available. And then the last one, or it's the final page, has all the different dates that things are going to be opened and closed and things like that.
The only significant change other than those is the, in the reach. Everything else, like Tricia, I'm just going to restate it again.
Go for it.
Status quo.
It looks like nobody has any more questions or comments. Okay, can we move on to?
Board.
Attachment 3, we're looking at the actual application, and for our long-term commissioners, we know how thoroughly you have gone through and wordsmithed the application questions. We definitely want to approve them again this year. I wanted to bring to us a clarification of the new bid requirements, as Commissioner Kriz mentioned earlier. I believe it was, well, you guys can let us know which question, if you want to add anything to it, what it might be and what those words might be. Because we've got these new.
It's 23, 24, and 25. So in 23, we'd want the highlighted or the italicized language to match the policy guide.
Are we limited on space? Do we have a character or
We
word count?
are, and it is the italicized section that is limited. It's
Right.
more limited than the bolded section.
Right.
But we can absolutely do our best to make sure that those two match up.
Yeah, yeah.
For 24, I know last time we did have a question on that one too.
On property?
Yeah, we had someone who didn't own the property but was making a capital improvement to it.
That was the community,
School.
the community, RCP,
And so is that something you guys
RCS.
spend any time evaluating for?
They just have to turn in something from the owner of the building stating that they're allowing the improvements to be done.
And then that would be the type of thing that during the, I'm saying grace period, you called it something else, but that would be.
The eligibility determination.
Eligibility determination, you could clarify if for some reason they didn't
Yes.
understand and include it, okay.
And that historically is not as much of a grants commission role in determining that because that sounds like it is a city requirement. So we wouldn't necessarily be privy to what documentation is required to meet that. The capital for property improvement if they don't own the property, right?
We potentially have some leeway, but it would be kind of a fundamental accountability for the use of our funds to make sure that somebody's using them and they have an ownership interest or a leasehold interest and the permission to do that.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Of all these new changes, especially with the bid stuff. Yeah.
So in that case, with the no answer, do we want to add an item that specifically says we need a letter from the property owner giving permission? And that way, it's clear that if they don't own it, they still need to provide us with something. Might save staff time going back and saying, oh, you answered no, we need this.
True. Or just having them be
That's a really
disqualified.
good idea.
Yeah.
Provide letter from owner stating these improvements can be made.
We haven't had it in so long. I don't think we ever have talked about that before. So.
Right.
So you're requesting a letter, saying a letter either way?
Regardless? If it's, if the
If
answer
it's
no.
no, only if it's no.
An explanation?
Well, it says, if requesting capital for property improvements, does the organization own or lease building or property to be improved?
Oh, and then it says, or copy of the lease. But that's not permission from the owner that they can make these property improvements.
Right.
So it's a little bit different.
But if they're not, so it'd be not applicable. So it's, if requesting, it would be yes or not applicable. I mean, there isn't a,
Well, no, they have a lease with the owner. What we need to have is proof that they have permission from the owner to make those changes to the property for the program. So, for example, we had, say VOA didn't own the land that we approved a grant fund for the playground equipment. If they didn't own the land and they were leasing that community space, we would need to have a letter from the owner of that space to say that they can actually put the playground on that property.
okay,
So what we're saying is that if they say, yes, they have the lease, but what we heard council say is that they need a letter that says that they have that permission if they're not owning.
so that would be the yes, provide proof of ownership or copy of lease in documents tab with authorization to be able to make improvements?
That works.
Okay.
Because then the no is,
And
what's the
then-
no mean?
What does the no
The
mean?
no would mean that they are disqualified.
Okay.
Don't check this box. Then do we need to have it here, or would we just leave it yes or
Well,
not
that, it would just be not applicable, is that we're not going to be
Leave the
doing,
no and
Well,
just
and what does
add
not
that.
applicable mean at that point?
Well,
They're not asking for capital.
we're not asking for capital
exactly.
improvement.
Exactly, because
It might be a circumstance in which they don't actually formally own or lease, but they've been gifted the opportunity to use a space for an extended period of time. I don't know in what universe somebody, how that might come up, but it's a potential that somebody could.
It did with the
Grow a
pedal
row
connection,
with
the
the
grow a
pedal
row,
connection,
yeah, because
yeah.
they're utilizing other space along the community.
And they may have leases, they may not. We don't know.
Maybe this
Probably
is two
don't.
questions at that point, or two requirements. One is a question and the other is please provide a letter.
Jonathan, from your legal standpoint,
Yeah.
what would make the most sense?
Suggest for this time, and we could see how it goes in our process when we actually get them, is keep the yes the same, that they're providing a copy of an ownership document or the lease. Use no to explain with attachment what the situation is and whether or not they have permission and can demonstrate that, and then not applicable can stay just like it is.
But in any event, you still need to provide a letter from the owner.
With the ownership and lease, I think they're more personally accountable as an entity that they're representing, that they have the permission. I mean, we could add that as a requirement,
Okay, I thought that's what we were,
potentially.
what we were talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need additional words on the no?
Provide explanation.
Yeah.
or provide letter. Yeah. Circle.
Explanation and demonstration of authority to modify that property.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Staff can work with Jonathan to wordsmith it if
Sounds good, thank you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And again, staff is going to be screening for that either way, so the advantage of adding the words simply can hopefully make staff's life a little bit easier, and the organizations won't be surprised when staff comes in with this question. My guess is, if it's applicable and they don't provide the letter, they check that no, they may not attach it, so staff may end up following up anyway, so hopefully it'll all write itself in its own funky way, or they'll be disqualified.
Or there's that.
Okay, and then moving on to 25, this is where I think Commissioner Chris, you were suggesting to have another option, because if they're buying equipment, but they don't have the ability to do the bid because they're buying it in the future and they don't know exactly what they need.
Right, so this would be the case of having the no. So have a, yes, they have the bids, not applicable, they're not purchasing anything, and then the no might have the explanation, provide explanation as far as why bids would not be available for proposed capital equipment.
I like that.
We can add that.
Okay, looks like we
Move on to the next one it's still in attachment 3. Commissioner Costa, this is your time to shine.
She already said it, right?
But if you'll
have questions.
Yeah, if you'll allow me, I will go over this list very quickly. And I think there was a question on this earlier. It was a really good question about why are we requiring all of these documents? We did go through the policy manual and we looked at each and every item that's being requested. And all of the required documents listed here are in the policy manual, except for the bottom 2. Which the one is the list of board members / key personnel, and the other is the recent audited financial statements and or internal statements. These two, I know that, again, staff, we go through the list of the required documents. If they have them, great. If they don't, we request them. I don't want to just remove them if the commission feels like, oh, but that's something I actually look at and I feel like it's very important in my review for scoring. So we wanted to make sure and come to the commission before we just removed them from the list of documents. Just really quickly, the recent audited financial statements, those are requested and required. But if there is a nonprofit that doesn't get audited because they're too small, all they do is write in a little Word document that they then PDF saying, we don't get audited annually, so we don't have these. So with that information, I don't know if you have
Which is different from the budget information, we're still going to be requesting the budget information, it's just the audited financials.
Yes.
Budget information is the important part that I look
Agreed.
at. I never look at the audits.
I used to look at the audits.
Did you?
Yeah, I used to. If I remember correctly, the reason I would look at the audited financial statements often had to do with issues with budget documents, not being quite sure whether the organizations were financially stable. It just gave another source document to verify that this nonprofit was doing what they're supposed to be doing. Is it this one? There's always one that's like lags behind.
RFF.
It's the RFF. Yes, that's it. It's been a pleasure not having to look at those and try to figure out what year are we looking at. Wait. But I used to look at that, and I looked at the board members and key personnel because I'd like to know
I do too.
if there's a potential interest. Being a little slightly politically savvy, just kind of knowing, who might have an interest in this being funded or not funded.
I look at the board members and key personnel based on the proposed program. One of the things that I was challenged with this last round is that we had a lot of folks that were wanting to provide counseling. And one of the things that we asked for is the copies of licenses, and not every organization that was providing counseling complied with that. And so for me, I was like, okay, so are they using interns? Do they have licensed counselors knowing the shortage that's out there? And how does that play into evaluation when you might have one organization that has 10 licensed counselors and they all provided their current updated license, which means they are under ethical obligations and all of those things, and another organization doesn't? How does that play in evaluation? So I actually do look at those and try to determine. It's the same thing if we're having, collecting bids for a capital improvement and it's not a licensed contractor. That, to me, poses a liability for the organization. So I look at the key personnel. I do look at the board members, but I do scrutinize the key personnel more and if it's appropriate for the proposed project. Like they said tonight, nonprofits have to leverage a lot of things. And so we want to make sure that if they're looking at something that's specific to suicide prevention or some sort of medical equipment, that they do have the actual personnel that are certified and able to perform those things that we're funding.
Yeah, since you opened the door on the counseling stuff, that was a change we intentionally did last year because we had it referenced in one place, but then our application didn't have that to where to include it. I've noticed when I've reviewed, and I think you did the bonus round, so you've reviewed a little more than I have in the last year. As far as, I see this as an and/or, board members and/or key personnel, because I get a range when I do look at those on each application, and I get a range of, this is our president, vice president, secretary, these are our counseling people who are working on this project, and then stuff in between. So I think it's valuable. It might be helpful if we want to keep it to clarify what are we intending, and then since Commissioner Costa brought up the counseling thing, I thought we made an effort to make sure, so when we have this list of required documents, to try to make it really clear to everyone, should that be a separate bullet? And that way it's not confused, because I can see with the board members, I'm going to supply my board members, and then I don't need counseling certificates, even though my program may have referenced some kind of a counseling component.
Yes, so we are planning on doing that. So lower under required documents, if applicable, we do plan on adding these three here. So proof of ownership, copy of lease, again, that'll be if applicable. The 3 written estimates for any capital expenditures or property improvements, which I'm going to be adding a form. That is the next document that we can look at. And then the third is an optional other, which is, again, something that they can upload anything else that they want the commission to be able to look at. So I think actually that one is already there, but the other 2 are going to be.
To Commissioner Carroll's point, if we're having folks that are doing counseling, they should be providing the documentation.
Yes.
Because if you're licensed or even an intern, you have to register with the BBS to ensure that you're under the ethical and mandated reporting obligations and all of those things. So that, I don't think that should be optional. I think that should, if you're specifically asking for funding for a counseling program or any program that requires any sort of certification, medical assisting, some of the programs that maybe nursing or depending, hospice, those kinds of things. We get a variety under our different categories. But I think that we should make that as a 4th bullet, that if there is a certification element to the proposed project, that those licenses are included.
We can add that under if applicable.
Yeah. My question, is there, like you were referencing, is there a website to go to? Because I guess for me, not knowing if I'm reviewing it, what specifically to look at too, right? So, I mean, anyone can, I hate to say, add a certification to it that I'm kind of look at and just go, okay, well, this looks like it. So I don't know.
For counseling specifically, it's the Board of Behavioral Sciences, that's California State Board, that would list your registered interns and your licensed clinicians.
So I guess my question, is it similar to like the RRF where could we provide them the link? Or, we were talking about how instead of just the certification that they actually have to provide, maybe, does it go into the organization where we could see it all listed, or is it actual certifications for each?
So for a counselor, you have to do annual continuing education units and annual renewals, and you have to have your license posted in the area that you are providing that service. Okay. So it would be, for example, if it was any counseling organization, they have licensed counselors, they would just literally take their license off the wall, make a copy of it, and upload it. Because it has their license number on there, and then you guys can go to BBS and put in the license number, and it pops up saying that the person is in good standing.
We do want to try to strike the balance between requiring what's required and then our ability, getting into every individual that's licensed with a company and verifying. I'd rather put it on the applicant if we're going to do it at all.
No, for sure.
And trust that if they're providing us a printout or certification that that's the case and that we're not going to double check it. And I'm glad, Commissioner Carroll, you brought this up, because we did need to circle back and talk about this and whether or not we wanted to formalize it in our application through our required documents this time versus last time. I think we ultimately didn't include it formally in the application, but we talked about it in the applicant workshop. And so there's a little bit of a disconnect between what happened.
Agreed.
So this time, if we want to formalize that, this is the place to do it.
If they send in a copy of it, it should have the date that it's valid through. So unless there was some egregious ethical violation, that would be accurate.
Should that be linked to the bullet about key personnel?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
That was going to be my next.
Well, to me, I think there's a difference, though, between the board members and then key personnel working on the
I
project.
agree with that. I
So-
think those should be separate.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we want both, then I think those are two different bullets, because otherwise it's easy to confuse.
No, I agree with that people are like, oh, that's an either or because it's a slash. And so they're sending in their board list, and then we really have no idea who's actually doing the work in the program.
I wouldn't want to see a license and not a name associated with, I'd be like, whose license is this, you know, and what do they do? So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So for your key personnel, are you saying key personnel like, or how is it?
For the program.
For that particular
For the program that you're seeking funding for, something to that effect. So if, like, for example, Blue Line Arts tonight said, we have this painter that's doing this. We made sure that they had the business license, and they had all that stuff. That was part of their application. So they would list him as a key personnel for the mural project.
Or the bidding process.
Or
I think
in
it
the
was a
bid.
bidding process.
Yeah, or it was
that-
in the bid,
where
yeah.
They had a couple of different options, yeah.
So it sounds like we do want to keep that first bullet that was suggestion to remove and make it 2 bullets. My thought on the financial audited statements, I do look at them sometimes because I feel like the budget document that's up there earlier, sometimes that's a really nice comprehensive document. Sometimes it's a little corner of an Excel spreadsheet that someone put together in 5 minutes. So in some ways, I feel like it is a little burdensome to attach all your audited financial statements. So I appreciate that we may not want that level of detail, but at the same time, if I only have, 5 lines in a, prepared budget in 5 minutes that I uploaded, then I'm not confident that the questions in the application that I'm, needing to review financial stability and those kinds of things that I have the information for. So I don't have a good suggestion, but that's where I'm.
Would a profit and loss, a current profit and loss statement be a good compromise between those two?
Taxing I was going to say nonprofits have a profit and loss
How small would they
statement.
be that they wouldn't have a profit and loss statement?
I think it could possibly, be like an Excel spreadsheet, kind of similar to what you're saying about the budget. So
But it would have your in and outs on it.
just from the review of some of the things I saw, like
wouldn't do it.
Commissioner,
I
it was very interesting to see, and that's where my question to you guys is because if they don't have a recent audited financial statement, which some did not, some were either a couple years old or they're in process, and I know they would write, a statement of some sort. The other is we did have some include bank statements, which that might go and show that they're, but then again, now we're seeing
Really
funding of their
intrusive.
bank statements, but are we then okay with just taking someone writing, I don't have one?
Or they would include tax returns.
Yeah, I had
would
tax
include all
returns, I
sorts of
had,
Yikes.
so now we're holding a
Really
lot
need all
of.
that level of detail to make the awards that we're looking at, or make the recommendations for
That's
the
what we need
awards.
to be kind of specific
Yeah,
with this.
Yeah, I would be fine with just removing this item and not having it as part of the submittal.
And certainly the commission can revisit if it doesn't work and you still feel you need something else, you can always add it back in.
Well,
next
and we
cycle,
can
or
emphasize
future
that in the
cycle.
workshop, that, we've taken this out. However, we have
We want a
questions in
detailed
here.
budget.
Yeah, we have questions in here about your financial stability and things like that. That's much more than just, $5,000 for this particular project. If you're not putting that information in your application, then that's going to reflect on how we score you.
So can we then change the copy of the agency's current fiscal budget to, we want a line item budget? Is that too detailed? That's what federal grants require, is a line item budget for the proposed project.
The application has that. and they're
Yeah.
supposed to
They're
do that.
submitting that.
That's true, that's in that.
Yeah,
A
that's,
budget for what they're requesting.
it's actually in the application
So there are,
itself.
yeah, we do request two. One is the current fiscal year budget, and a lot of times we get old budget, so that's one of the other things that Toby and I have to go back and ask for, current budget. And then as part of the application, they do have to do a budget for the actual program.
But for, like, but for the annual budget, when you're looking for the current fiscal year, they have an annual budget.
But it's more than just the program or project they're proposing.
But that's what I'm saying, is that can we ask for a line item budget that shows the annual pieces? Is that a compromise?
For the
No?
project?
No, for the whole agency.
For the
year.
organization.
Do that. It could be very burdensome for the organizations that don't do that.
Right.
They might just be too small to even, I mean, most of them have it.
The thing that I'm most interested in is in the budget for what they're requesting funds for.
I agree.
Right, and I don't, if we're looking for a viability of the organization by looking at some of the budget, I'm not sure I would look at that level of detail to be able to make the recommendations or the scoring that I would do.
I like to know what's coming in and what's going out, just in general, in terms of the income coming in, make sure that and to understand what other projects they might have.
Is that our onus to do that, or is it executive directors of the organizations that are?
Oh, we have
There's, but one of our
Yeah,
questions
question number
speaks
10.
to ones of, yeah.
Project budget is reasonable in relation to the organization's.
And
that
again, that
Annual budget,
I think the whole
straight stability.
purpose, please add Commissioner Carroll, part of the reason that question is there is to make sure that that they are viable, that they're sustainable, that they're not relying solely on the grants to keep this organizational afloat. So I think it's still very important, if we want to be responsible and continue the work we've been doing, to keep in the annual budget.
Yeah, I like seeing something beyond just what money they're requesting from us, to better understand the organization. How big is it? How stable over whatever period of time? Is this their whole gig? Or, is this one of several things? And so I like that, I'm okay scrapping the financial statements and audit stuff. But I think, like I said, I wouldn't want to remove the fiscal year budget. How much clarity
I
we
would
want
agree.
How much clarity we want to give, I don't know, but I think that's definitely a highlight in the workshop to say, we have questions about this, and if when you supply your fiscal year budget, it's a 5-line Excel worksheet, screenshot, that may be reflected in your scores.
I would agree.
And then we can see how, I guess, next year that goes.
Do we have to decide the wording tonight? If we're going to make the motion? Okay. Again, I'd like to consult with Jonathan on that, for knowing that I know the next item agenda is question 10, but part of that rubric does mention that it's in relation to the annual budget. So if we have to assess that and trying to figure out how to word it to make it more clear, do you have any suggestions?
I mean, I don't see the applications like you do, so I don't know what is helpful and if anything's broken. I mean, currently, there's the 3 levels that we're talking about, right? The project budget, the annual budget, which we don't recommend doing anything with tonight, and then the audited financial statements, which are on the table that we're proposing to potentially remove. So really, with the touchstone being, what do you think is helpful and in terms of accountability and making your award decisions with respect to those items?
I think we've answered that, that if we have the budget that's put in for the project, they submit an annual budget, we remove the audited financial statement, that's enough for us to review this year to see if they're viable and if they can do the project within the year timeframe. And then after this cycle, if it's a hot mess, then we will revisit that in August of 2024 and make the necessary adjustments. I think that's the best path forward.
And we have brought up discussions of budgets and project budgets in our funding deliberations. So that's another opportunity to educate the nonprofits of what we're looking for, also in the applicant workshop. So those are other opportunities for us to
Yeah.
express what we're seeing in our observations in a way that hopefully the nonprofits will see, hey, we need to do better with this next year.
Toby has her favorite screenshots.
And in November, we'll have the opportunity to go over the script for the workshop. So if there's things that we want to highlight, we absolutely can add.
This fits right in with your examples of what to do and what not to do.
Yes.
Here's a budget of what not to do.
Exactly.
Yes, and if you have suggestions, send them my way, too. If there's things that you really like to see, because those can go into that for sure.
So it sounds like we're good. Striking the audited financials, we'll keep the board members and key personnel, make that into 2. Yes, and then we'll add the counseling under if applicable. And then the final item to talk about under attachment 3 is the new quote summary sheet. This was a suggestion just to help ensure that folks are turning in the quotes properly. So I kind of stole this off of the internet and made it our own. And hopefully, like it helps.
No, this looks great.
Sure.
This looks really great. I think it's very clear and it really helped the applicants understand.
So this will be attached on that document sheet as you must complete this.
And in the grants workshop, we can, again, just reiterate what a written quote, the definition of a written quote.
Sorry. Do we need to add online on here if we're accepting online or for the middle category?
So that might be a conversation we need to finish. If our understanding is written is inclusive of online as something that you can print, or if we're saying we understand it to be something different, then we would need to add on a potential new column.
Commissioner Chris?
Yeah,
Do you
I
have
think,
any thoughts on that?
I think an online quote would be sufficient. So if you find the items on there that,
But would you check that as a written quote?
Or would you want to add a third column that says online quote?
Could you just say written or online quote attached? Written/online quote attached?
Sure.
Like that.
yeah.
Clarification, we can make that.
My question was, you have nonprofit name, signature of person obtaining the quote. What would you want a printed name? I mean, signing this isn't really, I'm just thinking if you were trying to figure out what their signature was or who they were, you may not be able to figure that out from their
Yeah,
signature.
we don't need a signature, just person.
Okay. Person obtaining quotes. All right, then we will move on to attachment 4, which is our scoring criteria. And again, similar to the application questions, this scoring we've gone over it and over it and over it. But this time around, it was, we thought that question 3, just because of the new robust eligibility determination, that we might want to bring this to you and make sure that you still liked question 3, you didn't want to make any changes to it, and same thing with the scoring that goes along with it with the full 10 points.
I'm kind of confused then. So what you have in bold hasn't been changed, you're just thinking we might want to change it?
That is correct.
Can I get I guess I'm not picking up the hint. What do you think we might want to change about that?
Either in the cycle last or the one before that, the value was increased for that particular item. And now that we're taking a more robust, solidified eligibility determination window period, whether or not you feel it still belongs at that point value, when it gets to you.
So if I'm understanding, you're saying that you guys are assessing this in the new eligibility criteria, or staff is, to some level with the new language. So do we want to add more value to the other 9?
Potentially.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I look at this as a separate and independent, because the analysis staff is doing is the procedural. They're making sure all the requirements are there. What I look at is is what they're telling me they're going to be doing in the essence of why this fund was established. So it's beyond the procedural stuff. It's beyond serving people. I'm looking at my favorite pedal connection. They have these plots of land. Are they in Roseville, for example? Or how many people, are they telling me how many people in Roseville that they're serving with these million flower arrangements? So.
Yeah, I would say along those lines, I don't see this as a technical staff screening so much as, I almost, when I read it, I think reflects the mission, and I kind of want to add, and spirit of our whole program kind of thing. So I see this actually as a little more, I don't know if discretionary is the word I want to use, but it's when I read their grant application, similar to what Councilwoman, Commissioner Haywood was suggesting. It's yeah. What is the vibe I get from them, and does it really flow with what the intent of, my understanding at least of the intent of the
And
commission funding that's available?
I was just going to add too, when we changed this, I think we also had gone back and changed questions to help us further assess for that in the application. So we had made those changes together.
So you're happy with this question as it is and the scoring? That's wonderful. Yes, to hear that. Then the last one on this is question 10. The suggestion is just to add the word annual.
I like that.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds good.
That's the motion.
Yeah, let's talk about
And we need a
motions.
motion.
Yes, do I have anyone?
I was going to say, we have a motion to approve I move to approve, sorry. I move to approve the identified changes in attachments 1, 2, 3, and 4 as discussed.
Is there a second?
I second.
We have a ruling from the attorney that is an appropriate motion.
I would maybe just add and provide the recommendations on the policy manual edits to City Council for their consideration.
Then the public comment first?
We will,
Oh,
Yep.
okay. I thought it was before the vote, or is it after the motion?
as long as you don't take action.
Okay, should I do that now then? All right. I'd like to open public comment. All right, I don't see any people flooding. Close public comment. Now go back to the motion.
Is it second?
I have to say that again.
Oh, I second.
Okay, and we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion approved. Let's move on to agenda item 7, Commissioner and Staff Report. I'll open up the second public comment. I'll close now the public comment, and I'll ask staff for any updates or reports.
I have a couple things.
They're going to go first, staff.
All right.
That was a report.
Do have a couple things. First, something that's going to reflect the work plan calendar. The only night that the city clerk could find the night for the boards and commission dinner is on the November 14th meeting that we will be having. So I need to see if we can move that meeting to the week before, which would be November 7th, to see if we will have enough quorum to be able to host that meeting. This will be our double meeting, so it will be the youth commissioner interviews starting at 5:30, and then our regular meeting will be moved to 7.
Election day.
It is election day. I did note that to the city clerk. So if that doesn't work,
First is Thanksgiving. That's not going to work.
so the dinner is on the 14th from 5:30 to 7. And you guys will be receiving formal invitations and save the dates and all that good stuff after we decide, because they were waiting to hear. They apologize. That was just the only night that it seemed like worked for everybody other than us. So, and I think the facility too. If the 7th doesn't work for everybody, due to going to elections, we will have to figure out another date. I know we're not meeting in October, so I don't know if that works. However, I know that
That's a short time
looking
frame
at
for the youth applications.
applications close, I have that date. October 13th. at 4, so I don't know, let me see when our October meeting would be.
It's before
And
that.
it would be the
Yeah,
10th.
so we couldn't do that. So,
Is
does the
there
7th
anybody,
work?
is there anybody here working the elections? No.
I don't have my schedule with me, but November 7th, I should be available. I should be able to clear that.
Works for me.
A lot of it determines to having this room, so we did get it clear that we could have the room, and it looked like there was just so much else going on, so trying to find this room available. I know with it being the election, that was another caveat.
I probably won't be available. Is anyone else not available?
I most likely will be. There's
Yeah.
a chance I won't be if we travel.
I'll
that
be
weekend.
available.
I was going to say, at this time, I am available.
Yeah, I think I'm available.
So are you guys good if we move it to the 7th?
Yes.
You're gonna make me do that.
Okay, so we will start making those indications, especially with, because of the interviews and everything going on for the 7th, and I will let the city clerk's office know about that. Also, just so you guys know, the 22-23 final drafts have been submitted by the organizations and are available for viewing, so I encourage you guys to go into Zoom Grants and start reading their final reports. I am working through getting a draft together for that, so that should be coming out. That actually will be for the November agenda for you guys to review, but I just want to encourage you to go ahead and go in there. And then, like we talked about, the CBF policy manual will be going to council October 18th, just so that we have it back in time. So that will be the 18th of October. And I think that's all I had. And just, it was actually just encouraging anybody watching, any high school students that are out there, if you want to encourage anybody to apply, the deadline is October 13th.
My sister actually is applying, so.
Oh, good. Oh, yay. Good. Yeah, there's a flyer that has been put out there, so.
Any other reports? Do I have any motions to adjourn the meeting?
Need public
I was going to mention about, if you have not yet, please go check out, or unfortunately, I was unable to attend. I was actually scheduled to attend the State of the City. And unfortunately, I had an emergency. But let's leave it that way, because I would have loved to have been there. It was a breakfast, including also a speech with the mayor, and just an update of what's going on. If you haven't already done so, and for the viewers at home, you can go watch it on YouTube. And it really gives people, especially those like myself who are newer to the city, maybe give you an outlining history of the city. I think it's one of the speeches, I won't say best, but I mean, because I don't want to over the years, but there is an opportunity if you just would like to go back to see the different city of the states type of thing. And then also this week, for those of you who are part of the Leadership Roseville, which includes myself, there is on Thursday we are having a mixer type of thing, so we get to know the other applicants. And that's all I have.
And for clarification, do I open public comment again, or no?
The record can reflect that we no longer have a public. Special attaché to somebody up here.
So we can move on to agenda item 8, adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Oh, I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, okay. The Grants Advisory Commission meeting is adjourned at 8:08. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.